Hello friends, my name is Ajay and welcome to my channel Invincible. As you can see, I have a different type of SSDs. So today we are gonna look at the different type of SSDs and compare them. So first of the line we have Samsung 870 EVO, which is SATA 2.5 SSD. Then second we have Samsung again, Samsung 980 NVMe m.2 SSD, and this one is a Gen 3 SSD, and again a 970 EVO Plus, a Gen 3, again Samsung brand, Samsung 970 EVO Plus, which is also NVMe m.2 SSD Gen 3. And I have also the two WD Black Western Digital Black SN850X NVMe SSD. So let's check them one by one. So first, as you can see, I have a Samsung 870 EVO SATA 2.5 SSD. There is a written read speed of, let me zoom it. As you can see, the read speed of 560 MB per second and write speed of 530 Mbps per second. So this one is a SATA 2.5. Those of you don't know what is SATA 2.5, if you have seen your hard disk of laptop 2.5, then you probably be familiar with the SATA 2.5 SSD. So this is a capacity of all of them, all five of them are in the capacity of 1 terabyte. So this one is also 1 terabyte Samsung SSD, which is SATA. Then another comes is Samsung 980, which is Gen 3 NVMe m.2 SSD. As you can see, mentioning the read speed of 3500 Mbps, 3500 Mbps read speed. And the third one is Samsung 970 EVO Plus, which is again NVMe m.2 SSD Gen 3, states 3500 Mbps per second read speed. And finally, I have two same WD Black SN850X NVMe Gen 4 SSDs. So we are gonna compare them. Let me file all of them. For the convenience, I have installed all of them in my PC, or you can say on my motherboard. So I am using Asus Z590F motherboard, which has 4 NVMe m.2 slot, 2 of which are Gen 4 and 2 of which are Gen 3. So I will be putting these two Gen 3 NVMe into that Gen 3 slot, and 2 WD 850X NVMe into that Gen 4 slot. So and also I have this SATA, so I'll be using SATA cable for 870 EVO, and I also have a hard disk installed in my PC. So we'll be checking all of them. First, the specs I'm going to be using is that the processor. So the processor I'm gonna be using is Intel Core i9 11 Gen 11900K, as you can see. LGA 1200 socket Intel i9 11900K, and motherboard I am using is Asus Z590F gaming motherboard, which is Rogue Republic of Gamers motherboard. So Rogue Strix Z590F, and the graphic card I will be using is a Zotac RTX 4080. So I'm going to show you on my computer, on my monitor, all of them, and we are going to be using a software of Crystal Disk Mark for the benchmark test, and for the real life test we will be doing some copy paste test for all of them to see the speed of all these SSDs. And a note is there, if you use these SSD with i7, and you will get a lesser speed than suppose if you are using in i9. So if I'm using i9 13 gen, I will be getting more speed than i9 11900K. So let's get into the monitor, and here I'm going to change the camera. So first I'm going to show you the specification of my PC. Let's move into the task manager. Here we have the task manager. In the CPU corner, as you can see, to your right corner, right upper corner, that I have Intel 11 Gen Intel Core i9 11900K with the clock frequency of 3.50 gigahertz, and I have a 16 GB of RAM, and it's a DDR4 RAM with the frequency of 3200 megahertz. And for the disk, I have a disk 0, which is a hard disk. Then I have disk 1 here, which is the G drive. As you can see, the cursor is pointing to the G drive, disk 1 SSD. To the upper right corner, Samsung SSD 870 EVO 1 TB. So this one is your SATA 2.5 SSD. Disk 2 I have here, which is a D drive, and it is Western Digital black SN850X 1 terabyte. Again, disk 3, which is my C drive. I have a WD black SN850X. Then fourth disk, number 4, which is E. I have a Samsung SSD 970 EVO Plus 1 terabyte. Disk 5, which is Samsung SSD 980 1 terabyte. And disk 6 is a pen drive. I'm using the HP pen drive. We are not taking account of this. So the GPU, the graphical processing unit, or graphics card, or GPU I'm using is NVIDIA G4 RTX 4080, which is 16 GB of the memory, dedicated 16 GB memory. And so let's start the benchmark test. So we are we will go in a sequence from hard disk to SATA SSD to Gen 3 SSD to Gen 4 SSD. So let's have this app Crystal Disk Mark it open. Here I have opened it, and I am going to which one, this 500H. So here we are now testing the hard disk. So we are not going to be looking at all the parameters. We are only confining ourselves to the read and write speed. So for the hard disk, let's have a check. So right now we are testing the hard disk. As you can see that we got the read speed of 113 Mbps and also got the write speed of 110 Mbps for the hard disk. Now this time we are going to test Samsung 870 EVO which is SATA 2.5 SSD. So let's check this one also. As you can see that we are getting the read speed of 560 Mbps. When earlier I had a laptop of Intel i7 3rd gen, and I used this 870 EVO with that laptop, and I got nearly 300 Mbps per second. But here I'm using i9, so obviously I'm getting a better result, like 560 and 520 Mbps write speed, and so which is pretty close to the what has mentioned on the box. Now the test has been done, and this time we are going to test Samsung 980 which is Gen 3 NVMe m.2 SSD. So let's test that one also. So we had the result, and the 980 Samsung m.2 SSD gave us 2845 Mbps of read speed and 2489 Mbps of write speed, which is very less than what has mentioned on the box, which was 3500 Mbps. So we got pretty less speed for the Samsung 980 NVMe m.2 SSD. Now it's turn for Samsung 970 EVO Plus. So let's test Samsung 970 EVO Plus. It seems that we are getting the similar result for the 970 EVO Plus Samsung, and obviously it's a Gen 3 SSD, and it's almost 6 months old, so pretty less speed we are getting than what has written on the box. So pretty much similar read and write speed, 2829 read and 2847 79 write speed consequently for the Samsung EVO Plus 970 Samsung SSD 970 EVO Plus. Now let's test the Western WD 850X or SN850X, which is in my Gen 4 m.2 _2, which means the second slot. So let's test. As you can see that we are getting very less speed of 5410 Mbps read and near 5000 or I can say 4738 MB of write speed, which is very less than what has been given in a specification on the box of WD SN850X. It has been mentioned that you will get the 7000 Mbps of read speed and 6900 Mbps of write speed, which is nowhere visible, as the benchmark test that we are seeing here. Now finally test the WD SN850X, which is on my Gen 4 m.2 first slot. So let's test this one. So this one we are testing is Western Digital WD 850X, and it's 6 months old. So after 6 months what you will get is this, and I have a heat sink placed on top of all ACSDs. So there is expectation that I should have a better speed, but right now what we see is not nearly closer to what they write on the box or what they market for, or their, like these companies like Western Digital in their marketing strategy, that you will find that we are getting the speed of 7000 Mbps and 6900 Mbps of write speed. So that's not nearly, I can say it's far away from the truth, that we are not touching the mark in the system build, which is a very high-end system build I have made. So all of them we have compared, and let's move into the real life test, the copy paste test. So I'm going to close this one, and so this recreation, the D drive, is a WD SN850X, and from here I'm going to copy to another WD SN850X, and let's see the copy paste speed. So here I have pasted. As you can see, we are getting the speed of 2 Gbps per second, which is the real life speed. As you can see, we have done this one, and for the purpose of checking the Gen 3 SSD, now I am going to paste that same thing into this Samsung EVO 970 Plus. So let's have a test, and here we are getting 1.1 GB, more than 1 GB, and that's and dropping down, the speed is dropping down, but we can say that on average we got 1 GB speed. So Gen 4 is 100% faster than the Gen 3 SSD. Now it's time for the Samsung from Gen 3 to Gen 3. Let's test from Gen 3 to Gen 3. So here I am copying here, and we are getting from Gen 3 to Gen 3 almost near about 1 terabyte per second. Sorry, 1 gigabyte per second. Now I'm going to copy to SATA SSD 2.5. Let's see the speed. As you can see that we are getting very slow speed of 132 Mbps. So you can see the real life testing or the real life performance of these SSDs. So when these SSDs were brand new, I got very fast speed, but it's 6 months old now. I'm getting very less. Now let's try to copy a file which is more than 50 GB. So I'm going to cancel this one. And now we are going to do is we are going to copy a movie of 40 GB. So this is a Brahmastra movie in 4K. We are going to copy it. It's in the capacity of 40 GB. So let's copy it, and this one is a Gen 4 WD SN850X, and we are copying it to another WD SN850X, and let's see the speed. Here we are getting the constant speed of 2 Gbps per second. So in Gen 4 SSD we are getting more speed than Gen 3 SSD, but not as much as what has mentioned on the box. Now it's time for to move it into a Gen 3, and again we are getting around the data is fluctuating. So this one is a Gen 3 SSD, Samsung 980. On an average we are getting 1 Gbps of speed. Now from the Gen 3 to another Gen 3, let's move. From 980 Samsung 980 to Samsung 970 EVO Plus, the speed what we are getting is around on an average 1 GB per second. Now it's time for the SATA 2.5. And obviously average speed around 200 Mbps. Now let's check this one in a hard disk. So in hard disk we are getting a constant 100 Mbps speed.